If there's any class that needs new weapons, it's gotta be Soldier. He only has more than Engineer and Medic combined. It's not enough. Alright, maybe he doesn't need new weapons as much as some of the other classes. Okay, he needs them the least. But you know, I'm not gonna skip a class in this series. I sometimes see people claim that Soldier gets the most weapons because he's the easiest to balance for, because he's kind of like the jack-of-all-trades type class. And that's probably true. I mean, what doesn't Soldier have right now? He's got a lot of options. But I still might have some weapon ideas that would change things up a bit. Maybe. Possibly. Okay, let's go. Soldier's rocket launchers, with the exception of the beggar's bazooka, I guess, all function more or less the same way. And this rocket launcher idea wouldn't stray too far from that, but it would have a big difference that would fairly dramatically change how it's used. But I'll get to that last. This weapon's rockets would have a 15% larger explosion radius, and your alt fire will detonate them midair. Kind of like the detonator, but with the potential for more than one projectile at a time. And the increased explosion radius is pretty self-explanatory. We have a couple of rocket launchers with smaller explosions, so I thought it might be cool to do the opposite. And being able to control when your rockets explode means you could miss and still detonate and get some splash damage off if you time it right. This also means you might not be so reliant on shooting towards enemies' feet because you control when the rocket goes off, so you can shoot more at them. Even though these rockets might be easier to hit sometimes, they'll also be easier to dodge, because they travel 20% slower. Regular rockets have a speed of 1,100 hammer units per second, which isn't particularly fast, but this weapon's rockets would only be 880. And don't worry, that is faster than the Righteous Bison's laser. May it rest in peace. And these rockets would also have a slight downward arc, like an arrow. So there's a little more prediction involved to where to land if you're using it at long range. But probably the biggest difference over stock is that the ramp up and fall off will be swapped. These rockets will do more damage the farther they've traveled with a max of 112, but an unimpressive 48 damage at the closest range. Instead of generally trying to get closer, I imagine this weapon as being one that excels at mid-range. You can better keep enemies away at that range because the detonated rockets will be harder to get around, even with the slower speed. And for long range, you can attack points and payload carts from a distance and it'll be more powerful. But once someone gets too close, it starts to become a liability. You're going to be rewarded for keeping your distance. The original idea for this weapon was to have a banner type dealie that would charge through movement like the soda popper used to. But now the soda popper doesn't charge that way. And it probably isn't a good idea to have a weapon that gains its effects from moving in a game where you're almost always moving. Less unique, but this weapon would charge through damage dealt like the other banners, but 100% faster, which means half. It's kind of weird that way, where the Conqueror charges 25% faster, but it's not 600 times 0.75. It's 480 times 1.25. So this is 300 times 2, basically. If that makes any sense. So only 300 damage compared to the buff banner and battalion's backup 600. And like the backup and the conch, it would have an additional passive bonus. It would increase your movement speed by 15%, which was originally to go with the whole charging through movement thing, but you know that's not a thing anymore. This increases Soldier's movement speed from 80% to 92%, which is just 1% slower than the Demo Man. And when this weapon's charge is full, you'd be able to leave a little checkpoint flag of sorts that will restore 50% health and ammo and provide a speed boost to the teammate who picks it up. Basically, instead of blowing a horn, you'll plant a team-colored flag that acts as a medium health and ammo kit to only your team. Could be especially helpful if you're playing more of a supportive role. Oh yeah, and if you die with full charge, you'll still drop the flag on death, so you can still help from beyond the grave. Spooky. And this flag will also be usable by the soldier who planted it, but it will only act as a small pickup and not grant the speed boost. So a team-supporting weapon that also makes you a little more agile on the ground. It doesn't necessarily have the push factor that the other banners could have, but you're going to be able to help out your teammates more often with the faster charge. You want to hear a dumb idea? Probably dumb idea. Alright, so, I mean, all the soldiers' primary weapons are rocket launchers and a laser cannon that functions exactly like a rocket launcher. I mean, he doesn't really have anything different like a charge and targe or a huntsman type thing. But Soldier kind of needs rockets to be more mobile. So then I was thinking, what if we gave Soldier a super powerful secondary weapon that kind of crippled his primary weapon by reducing its max ammo by 90%? This cuts the soldier's extra rocket ammo from 20 to 2, meaning you can only have 4 loaded and 2 extra at any given time. But because this could be bypassed with the Cow Mangler, it'd need a downside specifically for it. So let's say a minus 75% clip size on energy-based primary weapons. So the Mangler could only have 1 shot loaded at a time. Okay, now to the actual weapon. When thinking of what would be essentially a non-rocket launcher primary for soldier, I usually imagine something like a Vietnam War era machine gun. Why not? In a game like TF2, where a lot of the items are kind of out there, a weapon that differs from stock but is kind of simple and gimmick-free can change things up a lot. Basically, this weapon would be a jacked-up SMG for sniper on soldier, but it would be based on the stock shotgun, and because of that, it would kind of have a lot of stats. But in this what-if scenario, where it's actually in-game for whatever reason, they could just pull a short stop if they wanted to and have the description not really explain anything at all. So first, a 200% damage bonus compared to the shotgun. This brings the base damage per pellet from 6 to 18. Then a plus 40% max secondary ammo on wearer, meaning you have a reserve of 45 ammo. Next, a plus 80% firing speed, which means you could fire 8 times a second. And a plus 150% clip size, which is 15 ammo loaded. And it would have a clip-based reload. But, unlike the shotgun, it only fires 1 pellet instead of 10. So, minus 90% bullets per shot. This all comes together to make a SMG-type weapon that has a significantly higher base damage, fires slightly slower, and has a smaller clip size. This secondary weapon would be your main source of damage, with your primary weapon as backup. I don't think it'd be anywhere near as reliable as having all your rockets, but it might be interesting. As stupid as it would be, shooting people with a gun instead of rockets. I don't know. It could work. Maybe. And then finally we got a weapon that I already covered in my Demo Man weapons video, but it was intended for a soldier too. It would be a boot weapon that would increase your movement speed by 10% and reduce the damage taken from blast jumping by 15%. And it would grant a double jump, but kinda like the Atomizer's triple jump, this would take away some of your health. I originally had it at 10, but I had some people point out that 10 really isn't as big of a dent in Soldier or Demo's health as it would be on Scout. But increasing it from 10 to 15, which doesn't sound like a lot, would make it rack up a lot faster, but not to the point where you'd want to avoid taking advantage of it. I kind of wanted this to be a weapon that would potentially give the gunboats a run for their money as Soldier's main mobility weapon, and I think this could maybe come close. Possibly. Maybe not as reliable, but it would give some new options. Well, that was it for this video. Some weapon ideas. You can probably tell, but I don't think I put as much thought into some of these weapons as I did for maybe some of the other classes. Cause it's Soldier. He doesn't need new weapons. But next time's gonna be the Scout, who also doesn't really need new weapons, because he's got the second most. But that's not important. Well, that's it. Okay. Done.